Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, Derek, and if you like last week's news that Conker was brought over to PC by none other than Microsoft, then this video is going to be even more exciting. That is because Conker's Bad Fur Day or Conker Live and Reloaded, and yes, I'm going to call them interchangeably throughout the video, because even if they change the title, it's basically still the same game. The fact that Microsoft decided to start quote-unquote porting games over to PC from the original Xbox was a breath of fresh air in a 2026 that otherwise has been very bad for modern gaming. And even though obviously it does have underlying emulation involved, and that's why in the initial video I said air quotes port just because it's the language you understand. The fact that Microsoft did anything fun this year in and of itself is a win, and somebody went in and of course modded the ever-loving hell out of the actual Microsoft official release of Conker Live and Reloaded on PC, bringing in both widescreen support as well as 60 frames per second support, because on the initial video that did not exist quite yet. I think it was made between the time I hit export and aired it, and now you can see we are playing in 60 frames per second, we are playing in widescreen. Basically, it's going to solve those two problems that a lot of people wished weren't in the original air quotes port. And that is incredible because obviously we want the best version of Conker we can play on PC, and now via the community you're going to have exactly that. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But obviously Conker Live and Reloaded on the Xbox and Conker's Bad Fur Day on N64, they were not 60 frame per second games. Once we get a Conker's Bad Fur Day recomp for the N64, it'll definitely hit those frame rates plus, but even on the original Xbox it was a 4x3 experience with a 30 frame per second target. Now that is doubled and the fluidity in the game is absolutely that much better, and honestly even if it was still 30 frames per second, widescreen support really is the thing that I love the most. And I've talked to a couple different people that have played this game from start to finish, fans of the franchise, and they say it's working well and definitely is a good time. And just so you know, Microsoft advertises this thing is only working on Windows 11, but every capture you see on my channel here of Conker's Bad Fur Day, that was done on Windows 10 with absolutely no issue whatsoever. So as I said in the previous video, it really does feel kind of like Microsoft is trying to push people like me to upgrade to Windows 11, because until they absolutely pull support completely, I will not leave the operating system unless one of my pieces of software I use for work stops working. And as we go through more of the game here, all the animations are going to run at that 60 frame per second mark. Basically, it's just doubling the cap. And what this does is, when you actually run the game, if you have the mod on your system, you go ahead and start to run it, and then it'll look for Conker's Bad Fur Day, Conker Live and Reloaded to launch on your PC. It'll hook into that and then change the memory addresses to be able to extend out the overall aspect ratio as well as that frame rate. And just so you know, I do use ultra wide monitors, and this thing would extend out even further than the 16:9, so it seems like you could get ultra wide support out of it as well. It's not the best setup thing, it's definitely more predicated on being 16:9 widescreen, but it kind of gives you the ability to play around with things any way you want. That definitely is a win in my book. And I want to see Microsoft do a lot more stuff like this, because honestly there's a bunch of Xbox games that they own, and now that they have that Xbox emulation going on Windows, it definitely opens the doors up to a lot more fun. And yes, as people presumed back in the original video, people in the community are taking a look at Microsoft's own emulation software for these games. They've even got other games starting to boot into it, and I think having that software out there in the world is going to advance Xbox 360 emulation. And before you say, but Conker Live and Reloaded is an original Xbox game, they are using an Xbox 360 emulator to run an Xbox game, kind of being the Inception Russian nesting doll of emulation. And that to me is definitely a good thing, because it's going to lead to a lot of community developments in the future, and obviously getting it start here, 16:9 and 60 frames per second. What I'm going to do next is give you a soundtrack sample, and I'll talk more about the performance here, at least on my PC, because some people with lower end PCs seem to be struggling a little bit with this. But of course, since it is Xbox 360 emulation, you know you're going to have a pretty beefy PC to be able to achieve a good stable result. But go ahead and listen to the dialogue and soundtrack sample for just a moment, and I'll be right back with a lot more Conker's Bad Fur Day for you to enjoy.
Hey, you over there.
Huh?
Yeah, you. Apparently there's something real neat inside this barn. I can't quite see it myself. Unless, of course, some guy's jumping around stinking a horse poo's real neat. Which, of course, it isn't.
This is pretty neat. Hey, Frankie! I think there's a little fellow over there. He's just coming in through the door. I think it's your turn to kick his... Is it his turn?
Yeah, I say it was his turn. Yeah, Frankie, go on, kick his ass. Go on, kick his ass.
I mean, some of the voiceover and dialogue in this game is still hilarious to this day, and honestly, Rare did a great job at reimagining Conker's Bad Fur Day. Even though a couple of people in the comments said that this is not the same game as Conker's Bad Fur Day, I'm not really sure how that could be the fact, because it certainly isn't a sequel. And even if Microsoft only ever releases these 4 games on the Game Pass service, now that the community has that emulation code underlying it, or at least the builds of it, you're already going to be seeing a lot of fun stuff come from this in the future. So Microsoft definitely earned a Rare W here, and I'm always willing to celebrate when big companies that are usually doing some pretty stupid shit finally do something fun. And now it's time for me to have some fun. In the original video, someone was extremely upset with me for spending 30 seconds talking about the fact that Conker's Bad Fur Day and Conker Live and Reloaded is more like Barry Lyndon than it is a Clockwork Orange, and they wanted me to apologize, so I am sorry for that. I should have spent over a minute talking about the fact that this game is more like Barry Lyndon than a Clockwork Orange. Yes, it opens up with the classic Kubrick stare of Conker sitting in the throne, wearing his hat the same way that the main character in A Clockwork Orange would. And while that music does have a tendency to sound very similar to the Clockwork Orange theme, it also has notes from it that are going to be directly inspired by the Barry Lyndon theme. Additionally, the way that Conker starts out life, kind of downtrodden, a little bit of rakish behavior, having a gambling and alcohol problem, and then rising up into the ranks of king, 100% follow the same storyline of Barry Lyndon, where Barry Lyndon is born as a lower class individual and then climbs up the social ladder, improving his station along the way until he becomes aristocracy, until he has a fall at the end. Now, of course, they don't see Conker have that same fall, but the trajectory of the character of Conker in these games more closely matches actually Barry Lyndon than it does A Clockwork Orange. Clearly, Rare was inspired by almost all of the works of Stanley Kubrick, because even in the war scenes, they have a Full Metal Jacket vibe going on. But for the person that was upset that I only spent 30 seconds talking about this fact, or in general, now you have over a minute of Barry Lyndon fun in a Conker video, and I get to have a little fun as well. But the one thing that is unequivocally not in Barry Lyndon or any other Stanley Kubrick movie is an absolute sweater cannon having sunflower that just is basically here as a joke. And that's a sentence I never thought I would utter in life, but that's what Conker's Bad Fur Day and Live and Reloaded brings to us. And that leads me into the next section on the emulation quality here for this quote-unquote PC port of Conker's Bad Fur Day. It is working really well. The depth of field effect is here, all of the graphics where they need to be. There is a slight mismatch in some of the lighting models and some of the scenes, but otherwise this is like 95% buttoned up, and for Microsoft's kind of first shot across the bow to get this working on PC, I would say it is really good. But just take a look at the screen cadence here, take a look at the motion at 60 frames per second. Every once in a while there might be a slight hitch, but otherwise it is running at a lock 60, but you're going to need a decent PC. I'm running this on an i9-12900K with a 3080 Ti, and I have 64 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, which is definitely overkill. But you can't bring a potato to this party. If you can't run Xbox 360 emulation, you can't run this. One more soundtrack sample and I'll be right back with a little bit more Conker mod fun.
This way. This way.
So as we run down the checklist of what makes a good PC port, even if again I'm only using that nomenclature so you guys understand it's running on PC, I know it is emulation, then Conker's Live and Reloaded version on PC hits all those marks now with these fan mods. You have a fully running version of the game, now in widescreen with 60 frames per second support where it only used to be 30. The audio is correct, the gameplay is good, there really isn't any latency in the controls that's going to affect your ability to enjoy the game, and obviously now it's even improved beyond the base of what Microsoft Microsoft offered to us, and people have wanted an easy way to play something like Conker Live and Reloaded on PC for the longest time. I never expected Microsoft to bring it to us first, but that is where we are now. And don't worry, I'm sure there's still people working on Conker's Bad Fur Day N64 recomp, so hopefully I'll have news on that soon. But if you haven't played this before and you have Game Pass, I will leave a link to the channel that featured this mod, because it's just a Google Drive link and it does not belong to me. So go ahead and grab it, play this game in widescreen 60 frame per second support, and while you're playing it, think about the fact that it's definitely inspired by Barry Lyndon. But you'll have to forgive me for having a little fun with this video and talking about that fact. Sometimes I get a little squirrely. Dad joke, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.